Hey there, Pixel here. I want to talk about the 4 starting classes of Rogue Legacy 2. Now, little disclaimer about this particular guide. This is not just for the early access version of Rogue Legacy 2. This is for the beta of the early access of Rogue Legacy 2. This is early access. So you only have access to 4 classes in this version. I'm going to talk about each of those 4, but I assume that as the game progresses, more classes will be unlocked, more classes will be open up to be played. Now these classes also borrow the names from the first Rogue Legacy, but in this game the classes are very different from one another. It's not just some inherent traits that each one has, their primary attacks are all very different here. So let's start with the Knight, because that's the starting class and probably the easiest one to talk about. The Knight is the exact same character that you played in Rogue Legacy 1. In fact, he has a sword, just like all of the classes did in that game, I guess except for the Half-Dragon, which carried a sword but shot fireballs. Nonetheless, he is the Paladin/Knight from the original game. He has a shield, he can block, plays very typical, average at everything, master of nothing. This is the familiar character if you've played the first game. This is your very typical starting character. The second class that you'll unlock in the tree is the Ranger class, and this is where things start to get a little bit interesting. The Ranger has no sword. All the Ranger has to attack is a bow and arrow. And this is really cool. The bow and arrow, when you aim it, will give you a little line that shows the trajectory of where the arrow is about to head. Now, it'll go a little farther, and there's a little bit of a fall to the arrow as well, so you'll have to plan your shots. But the really cool thing is when the Ranger jumps, if you aim while in the air, it gives a slight pause in the air, and you get to defy gravity for just a second while you aim in the air. And this can be used as a dodge if you wanted to as well. So the Ranger is a very powerful character, but because he plays a little bit different, especially with those jumps, you're going to need some practice to truly master the class. In addition, the Ranger can also use its special ability of creating platforms out of thin air. This is a very useful skill for if you are falling into a trap and you suspect there's going to be spikes below you. Pull that platform out, save your butt. The third class I'm covering here is the Barbarian. Now, the Barbarian does play a little bit like that original character from Rogue Legacy 1, but there's a few notable differences here. Yes, you have a big health pool. Yes, you have very limited magical abilities, but the Barbarian carries an axe in this game, not a sword. Not only that unlike the other characters that when they attack, they're able to move and dodge very quickly after their attack, the Barbarian isn't. There's about a half a second delay after any attack the Barbarian does that leaves him or her open to attacks as soon as they're done. For this reason, you actually have to plan out your attacks and make sure that you're not in a position where you'll suddenly get hit right afterwards. Also, the Barbarian, when attacking in the air, doesn't just do a normal swing with his axe. The Barbarian will spin in a circle and do very quick hits of very low damage to enemies that get caught in the whirlwind. Now this is great, but you have to be very careful about when you execute this move, because if you push too hard into an enemy, you're not going to kill the enemy and you're going to end up contacting it with your body, and then you're going to take damage. Also, there is that little bit of delay. When you land, you're vulnerable for a second, so an enemy could sneak in a hit if you haven't planned your jump attack very well. All this said, the Barbarian kind of executes like a berserker. You hit hard, you're big, you have lots of health, but you open yourself up to attacks a lot because you're very ferocious in the way that you approach offense. The final and 4th starting class is the Mage. Now the Mage was notorious for being an underappreciated class in Rogue Legacy 1. That is not the case here. There are some major advantages to the Mage. Now while I haven't mentioned this before, every single class, when they hit enemies, regenerates mana, much like the Spell Thief from the original game. only everybody gets to do it. Now, the Mage in this game takes extra mana per hit, so he can recharge his mana quicker. That's a major advantage. Another advantage is that his attack is a long-range attack, but this comes with a little bit of a caveat. See, when the Mage attacks, he does a striking motion with a wand, and then it creates an explosion some number of feet in front of him, maybe a couple meters. If any enemy is struck by either the wand or the explosion, they'll take damage. Now, the wand only does a little bit of damage, but the explosion does a moderate amount of damage, and for being a medium-range attack, this has a decent advantage. The trick in this case is, though, that you have to make sure that the enemy is not in the middle of your attack. If the enemy is approximately 3 feet or 1 meter in front of you, the enemy will dodge your attack altogether and then is probably going to promptly hit you in the face. With a little bit of practice, the Mage's attack is fairly proficient, but the big draw for the Mage is the ability to use your magic without having to worry too much about needing to fill it up. You'll get 2 distinct spells with your Mage, and some of the spells are very powerful. And then, in between spell casts, you just hit the enemies a few times and you're ready to go again. I hope you enjoyed this quick overview of the starting 4 classes of Rogue Legacy 2. Remember, the game comes out early next week into early access. I've very much enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like. Also, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, now's a great time to do that. Until next time, this has been Pixel.